You can read every review, watch every video, listen to every expert opinion about a car when it's brand new. None of it matters as much as what that car looks like at 200,000 miles. That's the real test, not the first oil change, not the first year of ownership. 200,000 miles. That's where engineering gets exposed, where shortcuts reveal themselves, where good decisions prove their worth, and bad decisions become expensive regrets. Most cars never make it this far, not because they can't physically do it, but because something breaks that costs more than the car is worth, or the owner gives up, or the repairs stack up so fast that it just doesn't make sense anymore. Today, we're talking about what 200,000 miles actually looks like in the real world, what fails, what survives, and why most vehicles never reach this milestone. If you're thinking long-term about your next car, this is the conversation you need to hear. Why 200,000 miles matters. 200,000 miles is significant for one simple reason. It's far enough that everything on the car has been truly tested, but not so far that it's only freaks of nature that make it. At 50,000 miles, almost any car will be fine if it's had basic maintenance. At 100,000, you start seeing some separation. Some cars need minor repairs, others are still running like new. But at 200,000, that's where the truth lives. This is the mileage where you find out if the engineering was sound or if corners were cut. You find out if the manufacturer chose durable components or cheaper alternatives. You find out if the design philosophy was built around longevity or just getting through the warranty period. What breaks before 200,000 miles in most cars tells you everything you need to know. Transmissions that were designed to last just long enough, cooling systems with plastic parts that become brittle, electronics that weren't built to endure heat cycles year after year, timing belts or chains that needed better materials, suspension components that wear out prematurely. These aren't random failures, they're predictable outcomes of design choices. When you see the same part failing on the same model at roughly the same mileage across thousands of vehicles, that's not bad luck, that's a known weakness. 200,000 miles separates good engineering from marketing. It separates companies that build cars to last from companies that build cars to sell. And it separates smart buyers from people who only think short-term. The cars that make it to this milestone without major drama share common traits. They were designed with realistic expectations. They used proven components. They didn't push boundaries just to win a spec sheet comparison. They prioritized function over flash. And the cars that don't make it, they looked great in the showroom. They had impressive features. They drove well for the first few years, but they weren't built to go the distance. What breaks before 200K? The hard truth. Let's talk about what actually breaks before 200,000 miles, because this is where most vehicles fall apart. Engines can survive if they're designed well and maintained properly, but there are common failure points. Timing chains that stretch, valve cover gaskets that leak oil onto exhaust components, piston rings that wear out and cause oil consumption, turbochargers on forced induction engines that fail and cost thousands to replace, head gaskets on certain engine designs that blow and require complete engine removal to fix. Some of these are design flaws, others are consequences of neglect. The difference matters. A timing chain that stretches because someone went 15,000 miles between oil changes is user error. A timing chain that stretches at 120,000 miles with perfect maintenance is a design problem. Transmissions are often the executioner. Automatic transmissions in particular are fragile. Torque converters wear out, valve bodies stick, solenoids fail, clutch packs in dual-clutch transmissions burn out. And when a transmission goes, you're looking at $3,000 to $6,000 minimum, often more. For many owners, that's the end of the road. Manual transmissions usually outlast automatics, but they're not immune. Clutches wear out, which is expected, but synchros can go bad. Throwout bearings fail. Slave cylinders leak. These are cheaper fixes than automatic transmission work, but they still add up. Electronics are increasingly the killer. Modern cars have dozens of control modules, hundreds of sensors, and miles of wiring. When any of it fails, the car might go into limp mode or refuse to start or throw so many warning lights that it feels broken even if it technically runs. Replacing a body control module or an engine computer can cost over $1,000, and diagnosing which of the 40 sensors is causing the problem costs money too. Cooling systems often fail because manufacturers use plastic where they should use metal. Plastic radiator end tanks crack, plastic thermostat housings split, plastic water pump impellers break. These parts fail not because of abuse, but because plastic becomes brittle with age and heat cycling. One failure leads to overheating, and overheating leads to warped heads or blown gaskets or worse. Suspension components wear out faster on some vehicles than others. Ball joints, control arm bushings, struts, and shocks all have a lifespan, but when a car chews through these parts every 60,000 miles instead of every 120,000, that's a design issue. It's expensive and frustrating. Rust is a silent killer in certain climates. Subframes rot out, brake lines corrode, exhaust systems crumble. This isn't a failure of the powertrain, but it can still total a car if the structure becomes unsafe. Oil leaks might seem minor, but they add up. A little drip becomes a puddle. A puddle becomes a quart every few hundred miles. When you're adding oil constantly and still seeing it all over your driveway, many owners just give up. The reality is that most cars will experience several of these issues before hitting 200,000 miles. The question is whether they're minor annoyances or major expenses, and whether the owner has the willingness and resources to keep fixing them.
So what does a car that's genuinely healthy at 200,000 miles look like? Because they do exist. They're just rarer than they should be. First, how it drives. A well-maintained, high-mileage car should still feel solid. The engine should start easily and idle smoothly. The transmission should shift without hesitation or harshness. The steering should be responsive without excessive play. The brakes should feel firm and linear. There will be some differences from new. Seats might have wear, the interior might have some rattles, paint might be faded, but mechanically it should inspire confidence. You shouldn't feel like you're nursing it along or wondering if it'll make it home. What has typically been replaced by 200,000 miles on a healthy car? Brake pads and rotors multiple times, tires, obviously, battery probably 3 or 4 times, spark plugs and ignition coils on schedule, alternator maybe once, water pump if it's not lifetime, timing belt if the engine has one, shocks or struts at least once, exhaust components in rust-prone areas. These are all normal wear items, expected, budgetable. They don't indicate poor quality, they indicate use. What should still be original on a healthy 200,000-mile car? The engine block itself, the transmission case, the differential, major structural components. If these have been replaced, something went seriously wrong, or the car was in an accident, or someone neglected maintenance catastrophically. The interior should show honest wear but not abuse. Seats with some compression and wear patterns are normal. Seats with rips and stains and broken adjusters suggest neglect. Dashboard cracks in sunny climates are almost unavoidable, but missing trim pieces or broken components indicate someone didn't care. Under the hood should be relatively clean, not detailed and spotless, but not caked in oil and grime either. You should be able to see belts and hoses and fluid levels without digging through layers of crud. Clean doesn't mean babied, it means maintained. Signs of good ownership are everywhere if you know what to look for. Service records are the gold standard. Receipts for oil changes, major services, repairs, documentation of when things were done and by whom. An owner who kept records cared about the car. Consistent maintenance intervals matter more than brand of oil or parts. A car that got oil changes every 5,000 miles with whatever oil was on sale will outlast a car that got synthetic every 15,000 miles. Consistency beats premium products with long intervals. Original owners or long-term owners are a good sign. A car that's been through 8 owners in 10 years has usually been a problem. Everyone passed it along when something went wrong. A car that's been with 1 or 2 owners who each kept it for years suggests it was worth keeping. Modifications can be a red flag or a green flag, depending on what they are. Aftermarket stereo and wheels, probably fine. Engine modifications and lowered suspension, proceed with caution. That car's been driven hard. There's also a cultural element. In America especially, there's stigma around driving an older, high-mileage car. People see it as a sign of failure rather than financial wisdom, so they upgrade even when their current car is fine, just to keep up appearances. That car might have had another 100,000 miles left, but it gets cycled into the used market prematurely. Insurance companies and lenders don't help. They total cars after accidents that could be repaired simply because the repair cost exceeds a percentage of the car's current value. A 15-year-old car with a clean history and high mileage might get totaled over a $2,000 repair, even though the owner would have happily fixed it and driven it for years. Lack of knowledge plays a role too. Many owners don't understand what's normal aging versus what's a serious problem. They hear a new noise and assume the worst. They see a warning light and panic. They don't know that some things are easy fixes and others are death sentences. So they make emotional decisions instead of informed ones. The cars that usually make it to 200,000 miles and beyond, without talking about specific brands like we're in a cult. Generally speaking, simpler vehicles last longer. Fewer electronic systems mean fewer things to fail. Naturally aspirated engines tend to outlast turbocharged ones because there's one less complex component under stress. Manual transmissions usually outlive automatics because they're mechanically simpler. Four-cylinder engines often last longer than V6 or V8 engines because there are fewer parts. That's not a rule, it's a tendency. There are complicated cars that last forever and simple cars that die young, but simplicity gives you better odds. Cars designed with longevity as a priority rather than performance or luxury tend to go the distance. When a manufacturer's reputation is built on reliability, they make different choices. They use proven components. They over-engineer critical systems. They test extensively. They choose durability over cutting-edge features. Economy cars, interestingly, often outlast luxury cars, partially because they're simpler, partially because owners who buy economy cars are more likely to maintain them and keep them long-term, and partially because they don't have all the expensive electronic features that fail. Vehicles used for commercial purposes or by high-mileage drivers often reach these numbers because they were built with that use case in mind. Fleet vehicles, taxis, delivery vans. These are designed to accumulate miles quickly and keep running because downtime costs money. Engineering priorities that matter long-term are things like robust cooling systems, strong engine blocks, well-designed oiling systems, sealed electrical connections, corrosion-resistant materials, and accessible maintenance points. If you can change spark plugs without removing the engine, if you can access filters easily, if fluid checks are straightforward, the car is more likely to get maintained properly. Another factor is parts availability. Cars that share platforms with multiple models or have been in production for many years have abundant aftermarket support. Parts are cheap and available. Mechanics know how to work on them. This reduces the cost and hassle of ownership, which encourages people to keep them going. Community knowledge matters too. If there's an active online community of owners sharing information, documenting common issues, and providing DIY guides, that car is more likely to survive. Owners can learn what to watch for, how to fix things themselves, and where to find reliable parts. That support network is invaluable. Even the most reliable vehicle can be destroyed by poor ownership. Let's talk about how owners sabotage their own cars. Skipping maintenance is the most obvious way. Oil changes are cheap insurance. Skipping them to save $50 can lead to engine failure that costs $5,000. People know this intellectually, but they still do it. They convince themselves it's fine, that the oil doesn't look that bad, that they'll do it next month. Then next month comes and they forget. Meanwhile, sludge is building up and bearings are wearing. Ignoring warning signs is another killer. A small oil leak that gets ignored becomes a major leak. An occasional rough idle that gets ignored becomes a failed ignition coil or worse. A squealing belt that gets ignored snaps and leaves you stranded. Early intervention is almost always cheaper than late intervention, but people procrastinate. Cheap fixes that cause expensive damage are surprisingly common. Using the wrong type of oil to save $3 can void warranties and cause premature wear. Using cheap brake pads that wear rotors unevenly costs more in the long run. Patching a tire that should be replaced can lead to a blowout. Delaying repairs to save money often backfires. That clunking noise in the suspension might just be a worn bushing now. Ignore it long enough and the whole control arm gets damaged. That small coolant leak might just need a hose clamp. Ignore it and the engine overheats and warps the head. Driving habits matter more than people think. Constantly flooring it from every stoplight, riding the brakes downhill, never letting the engine warm up before driving hard, shutting off a turbocharged engine immediately after hard driving without letting it cool down. These behaviors add stress and shorten component life. Overloading the vehicle or towing beyond its capacity strains everything: the transmission, the brakes, the suspension, the engine. People see the tow rating as a suggestion rather than a limit. Then they wonder why their transmission failed at 90,000 miles. Not addressing recalls is foolish. Manufacturers issue recalls for a reason. Sometimes it's minor, sometimes it's critical. Either way, it's free. Not getting recall work done can result in failures that would have been prevented. Using the car for purposes it wasn't designed for accelerates wear. Driving an economy sedan like an off-road vehicle, using a sports car for daily stop-and-go commuting, treating a luxury car like a work truck. Every vehicle has an intended use case. Straying far from that increases problems. Neglecting the little things adds up. Not washing the car lets road salt eat the undercarriage. Not cleaning the interior lets moisture build up and cause electrical gremlins. Not parking in shade lets UV destroy the dashboard and seats. These seem cosmetic until they're not.
If you're considering buying a car that's approaching or already past 200,000 miles, you need to be strategic. This can be a great way to get reliable transportation cheap, or it can be a disaster. The difference is knowing what to look for. First, verify the mileage is real. Check the title. Look at the odometer for signs of tampering. Compare the wear on pedals and seats to what you'd expect at that mileage. If something doesn't match up, walk away. Get the complete service history if possible. This is the single most important piece of information. A car with documented maintenance every step of the way is worth significantly more than one with no records, even if they're identical otherwise. Have a pre-purchase inspection done by a mechanic who specializes in that brand or type of vehicle, not a general mechanic, a specialist. They'll know the common failure points. They'll know what to check. They'll give you an honest assessment of what's coming soon. During the inspection, critical things to check are compression test results to verify engine health, transmission fluid condition and shift quality, cooling system pressure test, suspension component wear, brake system condition, electrical system function including all warning lights, and evidence of leaks anywhere. Ask specific questions about what's been replaced recently. If the timing belt was just done, that's a significant value add. If the water pump and thermostat were done, even better. If major wear items have been neglected, factor those costs into your offer. Test drive it thoroughly, not just around the block. Get it on the highway, get it up to temperature. Listen for unusual noises, feel for vibrations, test every feature. Does the AC work? Does the heat work? Do all the windows go up and down? These things cost money to fix. Research common problems for that specific model and year. Every car has known issues. If you know what they are, you can check if they've been addressed or budget to address them yourself. When to walk away is clear in a few situations. If there's evidence of major accident damage or flood damage, leave. If the owner can't produce a title or the title is branded salvage, leave. If the inspection reveals multiple expensive repairs needed immediately, leave unless you're getting the car for almost nothing. Also walk away if the owner is evasive about maintenance history or defensive about questions. If they won't let you get an inspection, they're hiding something. If the car has obvious neglect, like oil leaks, worn tires, and deferred maintenance everywhere, they didn't care for it, and you'll pay the price. Price it right. A 200,000-mile car in excellent condition with full records is worth more than a 150,000-mile car with no history and obvious issues. Don't let mileage alone determine value. Condition and maintenance matter more. If you buy it,
Immediately do fresh fluids in everything. Engine oil, transmission, differential, brake fluid, coolant. Start fresh. Even if the seller claims it was just done, do it anyway. It's cheap insurance and establishes a known baseline for your ownership. Budget for repairs. Even a healthy, high-mileage car will need things. Set aside $1,000 or $2,000 as a repair fund. When something inevitably comes up, you're not scrambling. 200,000 miles isn't a death sentence, it's a milestone. It's proof that the engineering was sound, the ownership was responsible, and the car was built to last. Most cars never reach this point not because they can't, but because owners give up, manufacturers cut corners, or the cost of repairs outweighs the perceived value. But for those that make it, they're a testament to what's possible when quality meets care. If you're thinking long-term about your next vehicle, stop focusing on the first 5,000 miles and start thinking about the 200,000 mile. What will that car look like then? What will have failed? What will the cost of ownership have been? The answers to those questions matter more than 0 to 60 times, or infotainment screen size, or any of the stuff that sells cars today. Real reliability is proven over time, in the real world, by real owners who rack up the miles. Choose a car that's designed to go the distance. Maintain it religiously. Address problems early. Build a relationship with a good mechanic. Budget for the inevitable. And don't panic when something needs fixing. That's just part of ownership. 200,000 miles is achievable. It's not rare because it's hard. It's rare because most people don't have the patience or the knowledge or the commitment. But if you do, you can drive a car for a decade or more, save enormous amounts of money, and never worry about reliability. That's the real prize. Not a perfect car that never needs anything, but a dependable car that you understand, that you maintain, and that gets you where you need to go year after year after year. Stop chasing new. Start thinking long-term. The cars that make it to 200,000 miles aren't special. The owners are. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever owned a car past 200,000 miles? What was it? How did it hold up? What finally killed it, or is it still running? Drop your story in the comments. Real experiences from real owners matter more than any marketing campaign. And if this changed how you think about high-mileage cars, hit that subscribe button. This channel is about real mileage reviews, honest ownership costs, and cutting through the hype to talk about what actually matters long-term. I'll see you in the next one.